Alright, what's going on, guys? So today we're going to be talking about quality of life stuff to make your PVMing experience a little bit better. Notably, this is going to deal with stuff like adrenaline gain, which is really important, especially with necromancy. I didn't realize it, but the Ratio rotation that I showed is pretty strict on the adrenaline requirements that you have. So I'm going to show you some of those things that are really good. We're going to dive a little bit into the Relic system from archaeology to show you what I have there, and then some quest rewards that are pretty important for you guys to get. So first we're going to dive into Relic since I'm right here next to a bank. Right now I'm using Fury of the Small, Conservation of Energy, and Persistent Rage. For bossing, especially for necromancy, Fury in the Small and Conservation of Energy are pretty mandatory. This just ends up being a ton of adrenaline, especially because of Living Death and Skulls. When you think about like a Skulls rotation, Conservation of Energy saves you 10 adrenaline, then you activate Skulls, then you pot and activates, or you activate Living Death, and you pot and activate Skulls again, and you get 2 more Skulls during that rotation. So that ends up being, you save 50% adrenaline over like 30 seconds. That's a lot of adrenaline. So Conservation of Energy is incredibly important. The same is true of the Ring of Vigor passive, which I believe you get from the quest Extinction. Let me just look up Extinction to make sure. Yeah, so the Ring of Vigor, you can have it passively, so the effect is always on, and you get that reward from Extinction. So that's a quest I highly advise completing, because it's just the amount of adrenaline that adds up to becomes pretty extreme, especially in places where you're using a lot of special attacks and a lot of ultimates, notably with necromancy, but also with magic, where you're usually spamming G-Staff when you have the adrenaline for it. So those are 2 very important upgrades. You'll also know I have 650 Relic power. I believe you get that from having 119 archaeology. Let me just look and check. Yeah, you need to complete. So you need to have the professor qualification in archaeology, and then you need 120 archaeology, and it's not boostable. So this is a hard. You need 120 archaeology for 650. So this is a very steep requirement, but if you don't have the 650, you just drop Persistent Rage and you only run these 2, but it is something that's worth considering. Persistent Rage is pretty much just a quality of life for necromancy. It means you don't have to use the adrenaline crystals outside of combat to regen, or you don't always have to. For other styles, this will generate 5 to 15 adrenaline per fight, depending on what boss you're doing. So it's a lot better with the other styles, but for necromancy, it's purely quality of life. Other options that you can look into once you have the 650 are Death Ward. This just gives you a little bit of damage reduction when you're lower. This is pretty good. I personally just don't use it because I don't really care that much. You actually can't use Berserker Fury because you don't have enough adrenaline for it. So let me see. Is there anything else in here that matters? I don't think so. I actually think it's just Death Ward. Oh, you could also use a Font of Life. Increasing your health by 500 is not bad. Especially this like starts to matter when you're using your bonfire boost, when you're using the tank armor. You can get up to like 16.6k health. It's really a disgusting amount of health. You can also bring. I actually think that's it. Yeah, okay. Those are basically the only two options if you're running conservation of energy. So you're decently limited, but I just use Precision Rage because it's better quality of life. If you're not using conservation of energy, then Berserker's Fury is something you can look into. You can also look into Luck of the Dwarves, just so you don't have to wear this with you or bring a ring switch. Those are definitely options. But either these three, or instead of Persistent Rage, you go Font of Life. That's the Relic setup that I would look into doing. So beyond that, we already talked about Ring of Vigor upgrade. The other quests that you want to get done, mostly for other styles, not as much for Necromancy, or you want to get done City of Sentiston, which requires, which unlocks the 4 really good magic spells in the Ancient Spellbook, notably Incite Fear, which is the primary spell you're going to be using with Fractured Staff of Armadile, Exsanguinate, which is the strongest spell if you're not using Fractured Staff, Animate Dead, which gives you that really good tankiness that you see a lot of mages have, and Smoke Cloud, which increases your crit damage. So these are all things that are going to be really, really good. How do I find where it is? Can I sort by like release date? Oh, perfect. Okay. So this is from City of Sentiston. And then these are the requirements that you need for it. Yeah, so this is going to be a really, really important quest. Extinction is going to be very, very important because it gives you the Ring of Vigor upgrade. And then Succession gives you access to the Dive ability, which Dive is just, it's really good for movement because it is a Surge, or it's the same range as Surge, but you can aim it with your mouse instead of the direction that your character is facing in. So if you're running this way, you can dive back. And like, that's something that's really, really useful. Also, the important thing, that this is more of a side thing, but the important thing to know about Surge and Dive is that these are blinks. Even though you are physically moving, like your character is physically moving all the way here, the roll is just the animation. This is actually a blink. So you can use Dive and Surge to like go over like the walls that Raciel summons. Like you can use Dive and Surge to move over those, which is really nice. But yeah, I think that's basically it for that. Spring Cleaner, this is a quality of life thing. If you're doing a boss that drops alkables, having your Spring Cleaner auto-allocate is really nice. Ancient Elven Ritual Shard is slightly better than a Super Restore, and you can use it once every 5 minutes. I just like using it. Generally speaking, it's only like super useful at places where you're going to be AFKing, or because its cooldown resets every time you hit the this crystal at the Altar of War, its cooldown resets. So at places like Nex, where you're using it once per kill and it meets all of your prayer needs, that's another good place to use it, because it just, you know, saves you a dose. Same thing with Enhanced Excalibur. There are some places where you're just not taking like a ton of damage, but you're taking enough where, again, if you're resetting between kills and using the Altar of War, where Excalibur is all the healing that you need. The important thing too is that this scales with your maximum health. So if you're using, you know, tank gear and Font of Life and the bonfire boost, 40% of 16k health is a lot of health. Like, let me see, 16k times 0.4. It's a 6400 heal, which over 40 seconds, that's a lot of healing. So yeah, these are just some things to think about when you're doing PVMing that are really, really nice. If you do a lot of elite dungeons, completing Curse of the Blackstone is pretty mandatory because it lets you get your double drops all of the time. Instead of you having to turn it off whenever you do a boss and then remember to turn it back on. Because I know I forget to do that. So yeah, those are just a few requirements, or not requirements, but things that really help your PVMing. The boost from conservation of energy to your adrenaline is like really, really nuts. And it really can't be understated how powerful it is. Especially when you combine it with the Ring of Vigor. When you combine it with things like Supreme Invigorate, like your adrenaline gains are pretty insane. Like 30%, or what's it called? I just realized I didn't have my cape on. But a 30% death skulls into a 70% living death is just really, really, really good. It's not usually better than the alternatives, but it is something to think about where like this can supplement you not having conservation of energy, and this is going to be better than any other aura that you could be running. But like you can see, like these adrenaline gains are like pretty insane. Like a 30% death skulls is really very cheap, especially because it opens up things like, okay, I can use bloat now, and I could still use my other basics, and then I can use death skulls again, and I just have so much adrenaline that I can start using my special attacks. And like, oh, I'll use you know, a 5-stack volley, and I still have enough adrenaline to use another skulls. Like the 30%, I don't know how useful it is, but if you don't have the Ring of Vigor passive, or if you don't have the conservation of energy, these are really, 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 really good unlocks. So definitely if you have loyalty points and you don't have the other two things I was talking about, looking into Supreme Invigorate is a pretty good use of your loyalty points. But yeah, hopefully this getting some of these unlocks will improve your guys' PVMing. I think you'll really notice a big difference in your rotations when you just have, you know, 60% adrenaline, 100% more adrenaline, 150% more adrenaline than you've had previously. Like, it really opens up how fast you can kill things and how much damage that you can do. So yeah, thanks guys for watching. If you liked the video, drop a like. If you like the content in general, I'd appreciate a sub, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.